Yo, 2007 Honda Odyssey. There's about a gazillion timing belt videos on YouTube for this car, but I'm gonna put my own spin on it and do one anyways. This is the kit I got. I wouldn't get any other kit for this car except for maybe something that's genuine Honda, that's not some Chinese knockoff you get off of eBay. I had the victim go to Maynard's and get some global coolant. 22mm tire. There's this plastic splash shield that's going to be in my way. There's some plastic clips you pull the centers out of. And you can take these clips out. I'm going to just take a bungee cord and pull it around. That should give me enough room to work on this thing. There's a hydraulic tensioner on this thing I can get with a 19mm. And you want to pull on it real slow because there's hydraulic pressure on that tensioner. You just go nice and slow and you'll feel it release. And I can pull that belt off. This tensioner's got to go. There's a 12mm right here. And then a 17 here. Since I'm down here, I'm going to mark this bolt because if it was properly installed, it's going to go back on and it's going to be in the same exact spot. I took off the radiator cap because I'm going to drain the coolant. I have a 6.23mm here, and that fits on this bleeder valve real good. Just crack that loose and unscrew it until it starts dribbling coolant all over the place. And I'll let that go forever. Now you can try to get this bolt off with an impact. Good luck with that. You're going to need a really strong impact or really high pressure. I won't even try. I got this Honda tool here that holds onto the balancer. You can buy these or rent them from a parts store if you need one. You just stick it on there like that. I've been breaking a lot of 1/2-inch ratchets and 1/2-inch breaker bars on these bolts because they are super tight. So I'm upgrading to 3/4 inch. And I got a jack pole here. I'm going to put this on here and give it a good yank and hopefully it'll come off. If you can't get it up in the air to do this, you can always put a breaker bar on here and just use a jack and a floor jack and jack up on the breaker bar, and with any luck you can bust that loose. Now I can take this bolt off the rest of the way with an impact. This harmonic balancer, you just give it a wiggle and it comes right off. Top cover's got to come off. There's these flathead type screws you turn to a 1/4 turn and pop that stuff off. Looks like there's a whole bunch of broken grommets on here. Lovely. This power steering pump's got to come off. There's a couple of ways you can take this thing off. The solenoid's in the way. There's two 5mm Allen bolts right here. You can take them off and pull this out of the way. You have a little more room. There's only 2 bolts holding this power steering pump on. They're 12mm. You can sneak them out. I think it's easy enough just to take the pulley off because I got this removal tool here. Pulley holding tool I got from Napper or something a long time ago. I can just stick that in there like that. I got a 19mm on this nut. Now it makes it real easy to get at these 2 12mm bolts. Now you got this reservoir here. You can pull this straight up. I feel a 10mm bracket on this hose. It'll give me a little more room if I take this bolt off. The bracket looks like that. There, it's out of my way. This 10mm's got to come off. These top covers have 5 10mm bolts on them. I'm using a Midwell 10mm for this. This must have been off before. There's a little wire loom here that's supposed to go inside this groove. and it's not in there. Same here with this front cover. There's 5-10 millimeters because there's a little green clip that clips onto here, and that's not clipped in either. And both of these covers are off. You take these out so you can look at the numbers on the pulley when you lash the valves. Well, they sure didn't take anything out to replace a timing belt on this. 140,000 miles on it. As you can see, it's cracked up really good. So this person was definitely driving on borrowed time. That is something you do not do. If that belt's already cracked up, it's long overdue. You want to get to these before they crack. I have a 17 millimeter on this mount bolt right here. And two 14 millimeters here. Just so long as all the other mounts are good, this usually doesn't go anywhere. I can take that out. Now, normally you would take this cover off here. You pull up this tab. There's a tab here you pull up. You can take this cover off. You got a module here that's in the way of taking this mount off. You got to disconnect your battery terminal, push in these tabs here, and pull these bars back, and the connectors come off. And you can take this module out, and then take all this bracketry and wizardry off, and then you can get at that mount. And the reason why you need to take this mount off is so you can get at the 3 bolts on this mount. I'm going to try to cheat. Sometimes them bolts get rusted in the frame and they break too. The only one you can't really get at is this one right here. I got a 14 millimeter I ground down really short and stubby with a breaker bar. And a lot of times I can sneak that in here just like this and crack this loose. Now that I got that broken loose, I can get in here with just a 1/4 inch drive. Uh-oh, I'm stuck. That bolt won't come out, but it can stay in there just like that. And I'll put it in the same way I took it out. There's 2 more that are really easy to get at. I can put this cover back on because I won't be doing any of that tomfoolery. Looks like my radiator's done dribbling, so I can close this back off. I can just shut this valve by hand. I don't need to use that socket or anything. And behind this hydraulic tensioner that looks like it's been leaking like a sieve, I have a 12 millimeter bleeder screw. I'm going to want to crack that loose. Just turn it like a half a turn. That's going to drain out the coolant in the block. Then I got a bunch of 10 millimeters for this bottom cover. There should be like 7 of them, I think. And this cover should come off. I got a retainer here. I can take that off. I got one more 14 millimeter for this mount. This thing had a little rattle to it when it was running. I can see hydraulic fluid all over here. There's hydraulic fluid in that tensioner, and when it loses fluid, they start getting a little loose. If I pull on this belt, I can see that moving like that. That is absolutely no good. Now I get to line up some timing marks. There's an arrow there, and there's an arrow right there. I want to line those up. And there's marks on the top 2 pulleys that have to be lined up too. So for every 2 revolutions of the crankshaft is 1 revolution of the cams. So if you line this up, it could be 180 degrees off. I'm gonna put this bolt back in here, get my 19 millimeter, and I'm gonna turn it nice and slow. I say slow because there's compression strokes on here, and I wanna kind of bleed off the pressure while I'm doing this. That looks perfect. There's a notch here, and that's lined up with that groove. So that's right. That's not 180 off. And I can see that the pulley and that groove is lined up too. So all this is zeroed. That's right where I want it to be. 2 10 millimeters on this tensioner. I can take that off. This belt can come off. Take it around the back pulley first. 14 millimeter on this idler pulley. And a 14 millimeter on this tensioner pulley. That bleeder's down to a slow drip, so I'll tighten that back down. Doesn't need to be that tight. I'm guessing at about 12 foot-pounds ought to do it. Now I got 5 bolts on this water pump. These are all 10 millimeters. Looks like this pump's been leaking a little bit. There's a weep hole right here. I can see there's a bunch of gunk right there built up. I just turned these out a couple of turns because there's still going to be a little bit of coolant in here. So I'm just going to bust this loose and let it dribble out. And I'll take these screws out the rest of the way. That way I don't make a big huge mess. Now there's 2 alignment pins holding this up here. I got 1 alignment pin here. And there's an alignment pin here that's stuck in the water pump. I want to hit this gasket surface with a nice clean new razor blade and just pull down on the surface. Get rid of any residual goo that's up there. And then I can just hit this with a rag and just wipe it off. I'm just going to run my finger around here and make sure there's no high spots, no dirt. This came from a reputable store. You get them off of eBay. They're starting to make knockoffs that aren't real. They're fake. So you want to be careful of that. Of course, this is going to say Japan right on it, which is what you want, a Japanese pump. As you can see, there's a pin stuck in the block right here. So this one's got to come out. I'm going to peel this gasket off. I got a claw hammer here. I'm just going to carefully put it in there like this. Hammer down on it a little bit just to get it to catch. And pop it off. And I can pop this gasket back in here. If you see any pitting on the block, sometimes it happens when people put the wrong coolant in there or something. And you'll just take some ultra gray Permatex and just put a light bead all the way around here. Just kind of fill in the gap in between the rubber and stick it on. You want to put brake cleaner around the block surface too and make sure none of the antifreeze is on the surface. But this one's nice and clean and flat, so I don't have to put anything on it. I can just make sure that the surface is clean and just bolt it on. I just want to wiggle it around and make sure them alignment pins are in. I'm just going to snug these down a little bit in a crisscross pattern, and I always want to start with the 2 bolts that have the pins next to the bolts. I can final torque these to 104 inch-pounds, or I think the manual says 8.7 foot-pounds. Then the idler here, there's a sleeve that goes in here. Make sure you put it in the right way, and it can go in dry. You don't need to put any lubricant on it. It's a babbited surface, so it doesn't really rust. And this bolt gets torqued to 19 foot-pounds. And you just want to make sure it floats really nice like that. This idler pulley, it has a rounded edge on one side and a squared edge on the other, so you don't want to put this on backwards. Make sure the squared edge is the bolt side. I put a couple drops of red Loctite on here because it's supposed to be on there. I want to final torque this one down to 33 foot-pounds. Make sure that spins real nice. Now I can put this belt on. I just got to watch for that pulley because sometimes it likes to move, and if it does, then you got to put a 17 millimeter on that bolt on the pulley and move it back. I'm going to start on the crankshaft. I want to do the drive side first, which is the front of the engine. I want to make sure that this is nice and taut. It can't be loose, because if it's loose, it'll be a tooth off. Then from there I can wrap it around the water pump and then try to match it up with the rear pulley. It's a little bit tricky. There's a lip on the top you got to get around. You get it in the groove though, and you get it around that upper lip. I can tell this is too loose. See that? I'm one tooth off. So I just took it off and readjusted it. And that feels right. Nice and taut. Oh man, see that pulley just moved on me. So I just got to get a 17 millimeter on this and line that back up again. Okay, I think I got it. This is taut, this is taut, and this side is really loose. So now I just need to check my marks. Those marks look good on the crankshaft. Front cam looks good. And the rear cam looks good. Now that I know that's all good, I can put my tensioner up here. Then I can torque these to my 104 inch-pounds. Now I can pull this pin. Sometimes those pins can be kind of a bear, so I'm going to get some side cutter action on it, pry it out with that. Then if I really want to, I can turn it 2 revolutions in a clockwise rotation just to make sure all the belts line up real nice. The belt's ever so slightly walking off of this pulley, so I'm just pushing it in a little bit with my thumb to kind of get it to line up. That way when I put this washer back on, I'm not pushing up against the belt. Now I can just double check my marks again. Now I can put this mount in, and of course I got to leave this bolt in it. All 3 of these bolts get torqued to 33 foot-pounds. Of course this one I can't get a torque wrench in, so I'm just going to have to be a good guesser. This bottom cover I can put on next. All these cover bolts get tightened down to 108 inch-pounds too. Top cover's next. There's a little groove in there that's got to fit down into the bottom cover. There's this funky little anti-vibration isolator mount thingy-majiggy on here, and that's got to be horizontal. These get tightened to 33 foot-pounds. And this one here gets tightened to 40 foot-pounds. I'll put the power steering pump back next. 16 foot-pounds on the power steering bolts. $47 foot-pounds on this pulley nut. Dude tensioner. 54 foot-pounds on this. 16 foot-pounds on this 12 millimeter. Install my washer, make sure it's not backwards. Now this bolt needs to be oiled. I need to put a little bit of oil on the threads. It already looks pretty well oiled as it is. I need to put a drop of oil right there in between the bolt and the washer so it slides really nice. Stick that in the hole. Now I gotta put my fancy holder tool back in here, and I need to torque this bolt to 47 foot-pounds, and then I gotta turn this bolt an extra 60 degrees. And you see I got this mark right here and the mark on the bolt. I always mark on a corner because that's exactly 60 degrees, 1 notch in a hex. Instead of holding onto this with the holder and using a breaker bar, I can just run this home with an impact and just get this line to line up again, and it'll be right back to where it was. There it is. I went over just a hair, but that'll be fine. I got to do my serpentine belt routing next. Like I say, you want to pull on this nice and slow because it's all hydraulic. It don't just move real fast. Now before I put any coolant in this thing, I'm just going to start it up real quick for a couple of seconds. Make sure everything's kosher. Sounds like an engine to me. I got about 1.5 gallons of coolant in here. This is the overflow reservoir. I'm going to get all the old coolant out of this. You can see that line right there. That's where I got it filled to. Now I just got to torque the wheel down to 100 foot-pounds, put that plastic panel back on. Now I got to run the car, let it get hot, because that coolant level might go down a little bit. Then I'll top it off if I need to and call it a job. Okay, bye.